back, dear students, once again to your channel. This video is on Julius Caesar. Yes, my class 9 students, I know I have kept you waiting for long, but no more delay. Now we will be starting with Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 2, line number 66 onwards. But before I begin, you know what's coming up next? Yes, if you find these videos helpful for you to score marks in the exam, do not forget to give me a like and also to subscribe to my channel. It shall keep me motivated. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started. So, if you remember, we had stopped at line number 65 of Act 1, Scene 2, wherein Brutus was in a state of fear and anxiety as Cassius has been telling him a lot of uncomfortable things. And he had asked, into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius? So Cassius replies, therefore, good Brutus, be prepared to hear. And since you know you cannot see yourself so well as by reflection, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of. So Cassius says, therefore, good Brutus, be prepared, be ready to hear what I am going to say. And let me remind you, Brutus, that since man is not capable of seeing his own worth, of not understanding his own potential, he needs somebody else's help to make him realize his potential. I will be that instrument. I am going to be that agent for you. People usually cannot see their worth until and unless they start questioning themselves, they start questioning their merit, and they confront their own selves in the mirror. So, I am going to be your mirror, Cassius says this to Brutus, and tell you what you're capable of. And be not jealous of me, on me, gentle Brutus. Were I a common laughter, or did use to stale with ordinary oaths my love to every new protester? If you know that I do fawn on men and hug them hard, and after scandal them, or if you know that I profess myself in banqueting to all the rout, then hold me dangerous. So what are the arguments which Cassius puts forward in before Brutus? Cassius says, you need not believe me, Brutus, if I am a common laughter, if I am a joker, or did use to steal with ordinary oaths my love to every new protester. You know what Cassius is trying to say is, if I were a jester, a a clown, you need not believe me. But I'm not that sort of an individual. Number one. Number two, he says, or did use to steal with ordinary oaths my love to every new protester. If I have had the habit of going around, professing my love and showing my affection to anyone and everyone who, you know, is involved in any kind of protest that would question my integrity or my honesty, you need not believe me. Number three, if you know that I do fawn on men and hug them hard and after scandal them, if you believe that I am that sort of an individual who, uh, goes around with a lot of people, making merrymaking, laughs with them, spends time with them, but then come back and then, at their back talk about them, then you need not believe. Or if you know that I profess myself in banqueting to all the routs, then hold me dangerous. Or if you think that I go around drinking with the common people, then you could hold me dangerous. In other words, then you could consider me for not believing you. But I do not do any of these things. In other words, you could trust me. flourish of trumpets, and shout of stage. So, what we see here is Cassius emerging as a sharp and keen manipulator. He consciously chooses his examples to make Brutus believe that Cassius is the man whom Brutus must trust. All right. Brutus, what means this shouting? I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king. So, since a lot of shouting is heard off stage, Brutus is saying, what is this shouting for? And he says something very, very noteworthy. I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king. I'm scared people have chosen Caesar as their king. This word fear is going to be very significant because it brings out the doubt that exists in Brutus's mind whether to make or whether to consider Caesar as the rightful, as the rightful monarch of Rome, Cassius. And I had told you that Cassius is a sharp observer and he is very quick to catch on the word. I, do you fear it? What did you say? You fear it? Then I must think you would not have it so. Then I believe then you shouldn't be. Brutus. I would not Cassius, yet I love him well. So this is the conflict in Brutus's mind. He says, I would not fear it rather, but then I do love him also. Love whom? Love Caesar. I love Caesar, but yet I'm not sure whether Caesar should be the rightful person to become the ruler. But wherefore do you hold me here so long? But what is it, Cassius? Why have you kept me waiting? What is it that you would impart to me? What is it that you wish to tell me? If it ought be ought toward the general good, set honor in one eye and debt in the other, and I'll look on both indifferently. So if it is about the general goodness, then I'm going to look at it in a very objective manner. If it is regarding anything that needs to be decided between honor and death, I would look at both of them with a lot of attention and lot of objectivity. I would be looking at them impartially and would weigh the pros and the cons. For let the gods so speed me as I love the name of honor more than I fear death. And this is very, very significant. Why? Because Brutus consciously and very uh, but consciously as well as in an extremely meticulous way points out that he values honor more than the fear of death. So for Brutus, honor is much more important than embracing death. Brutus will not hesitate to embrace death if it can save his honor. Brutus is holds honor far more dear to his heart than his own life. Cassius says, I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus. I know very well that you value honor much more, as well as I do know your outward favor. Well, honor is the subject of my story. And Cassius says, I do know how much you value honor. Therefore, I'm going to tell you something pertaining to honor. Brutus, I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life. I cannot really, understand what you and other people of Rome believe about this life. This life, the life of oppression, the life under Caesar. But for my single self, I had his life not be as lived to be in awe of such a thing as I myself. But if you are to question me, I am not very satisfied with with the way things have been progressing of late. Why? And he again mentions a few reasons. I was born free as Caesar, so were you. We both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. So Cassius is consciously pointing out the similarities between among Caesar, Brutus, and Cassius himself, so as to make Brutus understand that Caesar is in no way greater than the others. What does he say? He says, I was born as free as Caesar. Both I and you, Brutus, were free men, just like Caesar was. We both have fed as well. We have got our nourishment from the same kind of food, both you, I, as well as Caesar. And we both can endure the winter's cold as well as he. Winter is extremely harsh in those places. Okay, so we can endure the coldness of the winter the in the same manner as Caesar can. So there lies no difference. So why should Caesar get so much of prominence? This is what Cassius is trying to point out consciously. And then he draws upon a few examples from the past. He says, for once upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber, chafing with her shores, Caesar said to me, dost thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood, and swim to yonder point? Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. The torrent rolled, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews, throwing it aside and stemming it with hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive the point proposed, Caesar cried, help me, Cassius, or I sink. So what does he say? He says, once upon a raw and gusty day, once upon a cold and windy day, when river Tiber, was very, very violent because the winds have been blowing at high speed. And you know from your geography lessons, greater velocity of winds, greater the velocity of wind, what happens? The waves are higher. Exactly. So River Tiber was very, very violent on that day. And Caesar had challenged Cassius. Caesar said to me, dost thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood? Jump in with me into this turbulent ocean and swim to yonder point. And let us go and swim to that particular point. And on this challenge, accoutred as I was, dressed as I was, I plunged in. Cassius is telling that he jumped in at the challenge of Caesar in the same very clothes in which he was already. He did not hesitate it for a moment. Why is this detail necessary that Cassius jumped in the very clothes that he was in? Because to show that Cassius did not hesitate to challenge Caesar, because Cassius always considered Caesar on par with himself. This is what he's trying to point out before Brutus, because Brutus has still not yet made up his mind whether Caesar is better than him or not, or far more capable and deserving than Brutus is. So Cassius is trying to point this out. See, Cassius is trying to point this out what? Point this out that, see, I did not hesitate to accept Caesar's challenge the way I was. I jumped in just as and when Caesar declared a challenge on me, threw a challenge at me. Upon the word, accounted as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. The torrent rolled and we did buffet it. So both of us jumped in, and the torrent, that is the high waves, kept coming in, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews. Lusty means brave, and sinews are your muscles. Okay. So what he's saying is, we kept challenging the waves with our muscles. That is, they were swimming very hard, throwing it aside and stemming it with hearts of controversy. And we were trying to challenge the waves. But before we could arrive at the point proposed, before we could reach the point till where Caesar had challenged me, Caesar himself cried out, "Help me, Cassius, or I sink." So Caesar only asked for help. In other words, Caesar was vulnerable. He was not being able to reach the proposed destination. He was that weak. I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear, so from the waves of Tiber did I tride Caesar. And what does he do? He's bringing on the analogy of Aeneas. He's comparing himself with Aeneas when Aeneas was the founder of Rome. Okay, and this is the he's drawing on the reference of the Trojan War when this thing he was a Trojan when Troy was attacked. Okay, he Aeneas had tried to you know uh, Aeneas had tried to escape Troy by carrying his old father on his back. So Cassius is drawing on that analogy that when Caesar was drowning, it was I, like Aeneas had saved his father on his back, I carried Caesar on my back out of the dangerous water. He is this vulnerable that he needed my support. He needed my help. And this man is now become a god. And this man, Anchises, was this Aeneas's father. Okay, and this man is now become a god. And this Caesar, this vulnerable and weak Caesar, has become god. And Cassius is a wretched creature, and it is that Cassius who helped him survive has become a lowly creature. What an irony! So Cassius is trying to use sarcasm in his speech and must bend his body if Caesar carelessly but not on him. And what is demanded of Cassius? That he bows down before Caesar every time. So this is the first example he is giving that to point out the vulnerabilities of Caesar. Now he goes on to give the second story. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, I did mark how he did shake. It's true, this god did shake. He had a fever once when Caesar was in Spain. And when the fit was on him, Caesar suffered from epilepsy and he was shaking. Okay, I did mark how he did shake. He was shaking continuously. It's true, this god did shake. We all consider Caesar as the invincible man, but no, this man, this godlike man, was suffering. He was shaking from epileptic fit. His covered lips did from their colour fly, and that same eye, whose bent doth o'er the world, did lose his lustrous shine. And when entire world gets surmised by Caesar's eyes, from those very eyes, what had happened? All the shine had gone. I did hear him groan, and he was groaning in pain. Aye, and that tongue of his that bade the Romans mark him and write his speeches in their books. Alas, it cried, "Give me some drink, Titanius." Titanius is again a character whom we have not met yet, but we will meet soon. Titanius is again another general and is a friend of Caesar as well as Cassius. As a sick girl. So, what had Caesar done when he was in Spain? He had cried for water and drink from Titanius in a manner of a sick girl. Like a girl who becomes sick is extremely helpless, extremely weak. Caesar had become like that. Of course, this is a patriarchal comment by Cassius. Yea, God, it doth amaze me, a man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone. So it really amazes me that this kind of a man, is now considered a god and he is bearing the palm alone. Bearing the palm alone is again a reference to your Olympic Games. Okay, now you see, this particular speech of Cassius is interesting because here Cassius is consciously pointing out the vulnerabilities of Caesar, who is no god, he says, but just an ordinary individual. Cassius is extremely jealous of Caesar's growing popularity, and thus he is instigating Brutus. And to, make his argument very, very credible, believable, he is drawing on the references of Greek history. He is recalling incidents from the past to make Brutus fall in his trap. Again, flourish of trumpets and a second shout, Brutus. Another general shout. I do believe that these applauses are for some new honors that are heaped on Caesar. So again, a shout. So then that means that there are some new honors that are given to Caesar. Why, man? He doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonorable graves. Cassius is very annoyed. He says, again, new honors. Look, one after the other, how it is heaped on Caesar. He has somewhat become like the huge statue of Colossus. Colossus was the statue of Apollo. It is one of the seven wonders of the world. The statue is in the eastern part of Greece. Okay. The statue of Apollo is a huge towering statue. Okay, so Cassius compares Caesar's growing popularity with that statue of Colossus. And he says, we have become, rest of us, who were also equally deserving men, like you and I, Brutus, we have become like groundlings, very petty men who have to walk under his legs. Now, the statue of Colossus was so huge that, the river would pass down his legs. So the analogy being, he's comparing Caesar's growing popularity with such a tall statue. And he says, like the river passes underneath him, we have to pass underneath him. And every time we come across him, we have to bow down and bend ourselves, which Cassius is dead against. And he says, men at some times are masters of their fates. Men sometimes chalk out their own fortune, like Caesar has. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves. The problem with us, Brutus, is not in our luck, but within ourselves, because we have not been working enough on ourselves to, reach the height of success like Caesar has. That we are underlings, that we are slaves. Brutus and Caesar, what should be that in Caesar? Why should that name be sounded more than yours? Write them together. Yours is as fair a name. So then he goes on to, he ups the game of manipulation, Cassius, and says, if you write both the names of Brutus and Caesar side by side, there would be no difference. They would weigh the same, they would sound the same. So how is Caesar more important? Write them together. Yours is as fair a name. Sound them, it doth become the mouth as well. Weigh them, it is as heavy. Conjure them, Brutus will start a spirit as soon as Caesar. So if you call them, if you weigh them, if you write them together, they are just the same. So why should Caesar get so much of popularity? Now in the names of all the god at once, upon what meat does this our Caesar feed that he's grown so great? Tell me, which kind of meat did Caesar eat? Because we have also ate the same meat. Then why did Caesar become so popular? Age, thou art shamed. And he is He is calling that entire period ashamed. Rome, thou hast lost the breed of noble blood. Says there are no more noble people left in Rome because they've accepted Caesar as their kings. Romans were, considered to be very, very brave. They would not just accept anything and everything. But now that Caesar has been accepted as the king, he says, Rome, there is not a noble blood left in you anymore. When went there by an age since the great flood, it's the classical mythology tells us how Zeus decided to destroy the world because men were so sinful. So he's referring to that particular flood. uh, went there by an age since the great flood, but it was famed with more than with one man. When could they see till now that talked of Rome, that her wide works encompassed but one man? Now is it Rome indeed, and room enough, when there is in it but only one man. Oh, you and I have heard our father say there was a Brutus once that would have brooked the eternal devil to keep this state in Rome as easily as a king. So he is drawing on the classical mythology, he is drawing on the history of Rome to make Brutus realize that Caesar is in no way a deserving king. Brutus, that you do love me, I'm nothing jealous. I do understand you love me, Cassius, but I'm not jealous of Caesar either. This is very important. Brutus is making his statement very clear. What would you work me to? I have some aim. I have some ideas what you're trying to say. How I have thought of this and of these times I shall recount hereafter. I have heard your opinion, Cassius, but what is my opinion about this entire thing? I'm going to let you know a little later. For this present, I would not so with love I might entreat you be any further moved. But as of now, I would request you not to get so worked up by whatever is happening. Brutus appears here to be very, very calm. But what you've said, I will consider. But whatever you've told me, Cassius, I'm going to keep in mind and I'm certainly going to contemplate and think on it. What you have to say, I will with patience hear and find a time both meet to hear and answer such high things. And we will definitely sit together at a later time and think about it when the time is right. Till then, my noble friend, chew upon this, hold on to this, do not divulge so much of details to anybody else. Brutus had rather be a villager than to repute himself a son of Rome under these hard conditions as this time is like to lay upon us. So Brutus is a matured individual. He exhibits here self-restraint. He says, since the time is not right, since the time is not perfect to discuss matters of politics of Rome, we will defer our discussion to a later time. But, you know, he is making it clear that we will not discuss it now. He is saying that we will not discuss it now, but we will definitely do it at a later stage, which shows that as a matured individual, Brutus is very, very conscious and careful about the political steps that he needs to undertake. All right, so we stop here for the day, but I promise I'll be back soon with the next episode of your Julius Caesar. Till then, take very good care of your health and goodbye. But before you go, do not forget to give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Okay? God bless you all. Take care.